Welcome to Mediocre Gaming, and today we're playing Deep Rock Galactic. Well, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. I'm Zarel. Let's get to it. So today we're doing the Deep Dive, codenamed Bloody Walk. But before we get to that, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up, smash that subscribe button, and ring that bell to be notified of all future episodes as soon as they go live. So let's get into it. First stage of the Deep Dive has Swarmageddon as a modifier, Dreadnoughts, and repairing mini-mules. So, of course, Swarmageddon means that there's going to be swarmers that are going to spawn every few minutes, so you need to keep your eyes open for that. Dreadnoughts, of course, are the boss-like creatures of Deep Rock Galactic. This time around, we got the Hive Guard, which is the bullet spongiest one of them all. Once you summon him, he'll be immune. He'll summon his minions, these Sentinels, which are very Praetorian-like creatures. Take those guys out, and then once that happens, once you take all those guys out, then he goes to a shielded stage. You have to destroy those little fronds that pop up on the top and sides of the Hive Guard. Once you do that, then he'll get into the damage phase. Do as much damage as possible, as quickly as possible, before he goes immune again, and then just rinse and repeat until he's done. So unlike a full salvage mission, the mini-mules that you have here, you only have to do the mini-mules. You don't have to do the rest of the salvage mission like you would see normally. So you just look for the mini-mules and listen for them. They kind of pulse with a green light, and then they kind of ping when you're getting close to them. You can scan them. That'll show on the train scanner where the mini-mules are at. Or the legs for the mini-mules, I should say. And then, of course, once you get all the legs put on, then you repair it, and then you can move on. So unlike a normal mission, this mission has 2 mandatory objectives instead of 1 mandatory and 1 optional one. Now, whenever you're battling Dreadnoughts, you're going to want to be in a more or less open environment without a lot of vertical nature to it. And certainly you don't want any cliff faces where the Hive Guard is going to be a little bit more difficult. In Deep Rock Galactic, sometimes that's very difficult to find an area where you can do that. Especially where they place the Dreadnought cocoons. And before you do the deep dive, you'll want to go ahead and grab one of those special brews from the Abyss Bar, which will give you a bonus or buff. Either you get more hit points, your axe does more damage, you get more gold for every chunk, etc. So, and that is not just for the first stage of the deep dive, but for all stages of the deep dive. So it really, really helps out. It goes a lot further than most missions. And if you're doing a mission that is a little bit more difficult, then maybe it's a good idea to grab one of those special brews, depending on what it is. Now, the second Dreadnought that we got was the Glyphid Dreadnought, but in addition to that, we also had a breeder, nanosite breeder, and a detonator, which made this fight a little bit tougher, okay, a lot tougher, because you're having to worry about swarmers because of the mission modifier. You had to worry about the breeder dropping down little minions, and then of course the detonator, which once you take them out. But it was very fortuitous because the detonator was actually able to take out the Dreadnought in one shot, which was awesome. So if that happens to you, it's not necessarily a curse to have a detonator and a Dreadnought at the same time. However, one dwarf did have to sacrifice themselves in order for that to happen. They had the detonator and the dreadnought attacking at the same time, which, you know, no dwarf, no matter how tough you are, is going to be able to, you know, avoid going down. So once you have all the dreadnoughts and all the mini mules taken care of, then you can call in the drop pod and get out. Now this is a good time to point out that the deep dive is a 3-stage raid-like environment where you can play by yourself with your buddy Bosco or with up to 3 other teammates, either pre-made or match-made. Now even if you get to the drop pod early, you'll still have to wait for the mule to come around and dock with the drop pod before you can get out. So defend the area or run around, whatever it is that makes sense for you and your team. Once the mule docks, the door will open and you can make your way out into the next stage of the deep dive. Let's go.
The mule has docked, initiating launch sequence. Close all hatches, we're going deeper. Well done, team.
On to stage 2 of the deep dive. This time we have no modifier, which is great. In addition to that, we also have 2 mandatory objectives, just like before. This time around, though, we have a full salvage mission and crystallized morkite. So crystallized morkite is going to be that gray-blue glow that you see on the sides of the level, and you just dig it out with your pickaxe just like any other mineral. It's a good time to point out that during the deep dive, you're going to want to keep your eyes open for nitra and gold. Gold, of course, will get you more credits at the end of the deep dive, and nitra will keep you flush with ammo and health during the deep dive. Now, while you're doing these mini mules, while you're repairing them, you're going to have enemies spawning. Now, if you have a whole bunch of people, if everyone on your team has a mini mule that they're getting, you're going to have a whole bunch of enemies spawn, and you can get overwhelmed very, very quickly. And I kind of feel like, even though there's no official modifier on this level, I feel like there's unofficially an exploder infestation. It felt like there were a lot of exploders on this stage than you would normally expect to see. Maybe not quite official exploder modifier status, but not too far off. So I think actually the most difficult part of the second stage is finding all the crystallized morkite. The mini mules, if you have the open area like we did, it's usually pretty easy, especially if you have a gunner with a zipline that can see what's going on. You can look down upon the floor and see what's going on there. But the morkite, you have to keep your eyes open and kind of explore the level to find all the little bits and pieces, and there's usually not a lot extra in terms of how much morkite there is on a level. But once you have all the morkite and all the mini mules, then you can move on to the next step, which of course is this zone control of the uplink, reconnecting the derelict drop pod with the rig in space. You repair it, and then of course you have this bubble. Need to stay within the bubble. You don't have to keep the enemies from coming into the bubble, but it's probably a good idea because you don't want to be overwhelmed with enemies within that territory. Especially if it's exploders or dreadnoughts or Praetorians, something that's going to be a little bit more dangerous. Certainly detonators. So keep your eyes open. If you have a scout on your team, they can light the area up so you can more easily see where the enemies are at. If you have an engineer, then of course you can have platforms overhead so that any flyers will make it a little bit more difficult for them to get you, and you'll have a better view of, or more narrow view of, where you have to defend. Once you do that, you have to refuel, which is again another zone control. And just like before, you want to stay within that bubble. The more people that are within the bubble, the faster the progress will go. The fewer people, the slower it will go. If nobody is in the bubble, you'll get a warning and you'll start losing progress very rapidly. If you go all the way down to 0%, you failed the deep dive and you'll have to start over from stage number 1. If or when you get to 100%, then you can move on to the next phase of this stage. So just like a regular salvage mission, you have those 2 zone controls, the uplink and also the resupply. Plenty of enemies coming after you to end your life, and of course you have to stay within that area, so you can't really run away to save yourself. You have to defend it, so hopefully you are prepared for that. Once you get up to 100% though, you can get out. Well, almost. Once you get up to 100%, then you still have a minute and a half. That's a full 90 seconds, and you can defend the area. You're still going to have lots of enemies coming after you, or you can just kind of run around the area. But once the countdown gets to 0, you're going to want to make sure that you are close to the drop pod, because you will only have 1 minute to get on the drop pod before it closes and moves on without you. So that is it for stage number 2. Moving on to stage number 3.
Getting more ammo.
Calculating orbital trajectory. Powering radiation shielding.
Shield charged.
ECOM operational.
Bam! Boy, boy, burn!
Part thrusters calibrated.
None can stand before us. Hurry up! I'm not getting any.
Drop pod powered up and ready to leave. It's time to bring it all home. Get on board, we're leaving with or without you.
Could you please hurry up? We're leaving. Come on, guys. We're leaving.
Get on board! We're about to leave!
I ain't got all day. Let's leave.
Could you please hurry up? We're leaving!
Just
Close call as always. New depth the wait.
for rock and stone.
Alright, on to the third and final stage of the deep dive. This time around we have rival presence as a modifier, as well as dreadnoughts and Morkite. So once again we have dreadnoughts and Morkite, which was from stage 1 and stage 2, but this time around we have rival presence, which means that there's going to be turrets and shredders and patrol bots and maybe even a nemesis roaming around the level. Now turrets, if you look for the turret controller, there's usually a lot of turrets guarding it. You can hack the turret controller and then all the turrets will go down on the level no matter where they're at. So if you have a driller, they can drill a tunnel to where the controller is at and not have to worry about getting attacked by at least most of the turrets.
Shredder, shred it. Shields ready again.
Depending on how your cave work is set up, it may be a little bit easier or more difficult to get to the controller. So make sure that you keep your eyes open. And of course, keep your eyes open for gold, nitra, and morkite. As always.
It's an arbalest. Seek cover.
Dreadnoughts, just like before, boss-like creatures. This time around, we got the twins, the Lacerator and Arbalest. If you do too much damage to one, they will heal the other. Once you have one of them down, then you can just focus on that one and do as much damage as quickly as possible. They don't have a shielded stage, but they do go invulnerable when they dig around and burrow into the level.
Open.
And I would say, just like the last stage where you had crystallized morkite, the morkite is the more difficult prospect in terms of time, because you have to kind of look around and explore the cave in order to find it. It's not on your terrain scanner or anything. There's no indication when you're close to it, whereas the dreadnoughts, they are on the terrain scanner and you can go directly to them. Once again, we had the Hive Guard, which is my least favorite because it has so much bullet sponge. You have to waste so much ammo between the sentinels and the shields and then the damage phase. You just have to use so much in terms of ammunition. But once you get the dreadnoughts taken care of and the morkite mined, then you can call in the dropship and make your way out and get those sweet, sweet rewards, credits, as well as the overclocks that you get for completing each stage of the deep dive. And that's it. I hope you enjoyed this video. Be sure to check us out on social media, and thank you for liking, commenting, and subscribing, and we'll see you next time.
Shield charged. Payback time. Next round is on way. Getting more ammo. I needed that. Explosive. Pow! Getting more ammo. Really much. This is so sticky. built a loot bug, and I'm not so proud about it.
Supply pod requisitioned. Launching now.
Hey, watch the stray bullet!
Dreadnought wiped out. Good work, team. Objective completed.
Let's be friends just for
All necessary Morkite collected. Objective completed. Job well done. Button on the mule is activated. Time to move on, team. Drop pod en route. Hang in there.
loot bug pop. Down the hatch.
Drop pod arrived. Mule is returning to LZ. Drop pod departing in T-minus 5 minutes. Drop pod departing in T-minus 4 minutes. Stand back, supply pod inbound.
Gun needs assembly.
The mule has been successfully retrieved. Make it snappy, team. The drop pod won't hang around forever. Supplies are on the way.
Get into cover.
Hang in there. Supplies are on the way.
What's that supposed to hurt?
Nitro's been withdrawn and supply pod is inbound. Supply drop has been ordered and is on the way.
That's rocket.
Retrieving escape pod.
Supply pod is here. Everybody collect ammunition. Come on, guys. Rock and stew. We did it.
PlayStation